the season is completely different than most seasons, and or any season, I should say. And so we're definitely going to be treating it like a different season. So just to kind of catch everyone up, during, let's see, I think it's right around July is when our season got delayed. So we postponed our season in the fall, and we pushed it into the winter. So during the fall, we trained, and just to kind of review a little bit, we trained just a couple times a week. We had a lot of protocol in place. I mean, the protocol we have just to practice would blow your mind, from the second they walk into the Riches Center doors to when they leave. Not only that, but then our off-campus protocol too. So, the behaviors that normal college kids have to have, and the sacrifices they have to make, just to, make sure that we're taking all the precautions that we need during this time. So we took about a 7-week break where the kids went home for winter break. Some universities kept their kids over the break, and I thought that wasn't a good idea. I thought that we had a really good fall training session. We didn't have a ton of hours in the gym, but I think we had a really good training session. And I thought that we needed that mental break. We needed to go back to our families. We needed to have holidays as normal, or as close to normal as possible. So I thought that was really important. And then we returned, let's see, we came back on the 28th, and that's when we had our first testing, our first COVID test, and the entire team was cleared. And it was great. And then we started to kind of just do some weight training sessions, and then we eventually hopped into the volleyball training sessions. And so that's kind of what it looked like. And so we're about 4 weeks into our season. And so I'll kind of get to where we're at now. But over the 7-week break that we had in the winter, I had to do a lot of reflection and a lot of just asking myself, what is this season going to look like? What do we need to emphasize? What does our message need to be to our student athletes, to our team, to the staff? And so I thought a lot about that. And to kind of preface it, I think it's important to understand what our season normally looks like. So, because I think you got to understand like what we're used to and kind of the situation we're in, and the reason why I made the decisions I made. But all of our student athletes normally, when we compete in the fall, we start at the beginning of August, right? So all of our student athletes are here over the summer. We've built up this great culture where kids are really dedicated to working out with Tim Murray, our unbelievable strength and conditioning coach, and I'll talk about him a little bit later. But they're here attending open gyms. They're here working camps. They're here taking classes during the summer. They're working out 5 times a week with Tim. They're really building up that physical base. They're getting to know each other. They're bonding with their teammates. And so we have, that 8 to 10 weeks, if not more, we're kind of leading into season, and again, this is in the fall. This is during normal times. And so when we enter into the season, we normally spend like a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks down at the Olympic Training Center. We're kind of in this really cool bubble where we get to bond, where we get to just focus on our team and ourselves. And then we kind of hop into pre-conference season, right? And we have 12 to 14 pre-conference matches. We get to really iron out our lineup. We get to get valuable experience traveling all over the country and playing different teams. And we focus on improving our systems, growing technically. We have a lot of time to implement our strategies and to teach. And then we build our relationships on and off the court. We kind of figure out where the pieces of the puzzle go. We learn about each other. We kind of figure out what our team identity is, what our goals are. We essentially have this blueprint in the fall during normal times that we implement. And every year we upgrade it, we make it better. But that's how we approach a typical season. And so, this winter season is completely different. It is completely different. And so I figured to myself, we can't approach it the same way. We can't. And my mind kind of went back and forth a little bit. And I'm saying, should we just kind of ignore what's going on? Should we just say it's volleyball as normal? And so I felt that, that would be kind of doing a disservice, and I don't think it'd repair us properly. for this season. So I have three main focuses that I had for our program this season. And it's kind of interesting because the team is so used to hearing me talk about systems. They're so used to hearing me talk about the learning process and how we're going to get better with our skills and this and that. But I have kind of a different way of approaching the season. Now, those things are still important. We're still talking about our systems. We were working on our offense system today, like 1 hour ago, back at practice. But I think we got to put other things in the forefront. I think other things are important this year because of the situation that we're in with COVID, because of the situation that we're in, competing in the winter, just having 7 weeks off. So I think that the first thing that I mentioned to the team is health. And there's a lot of different aspects that are important about this. But the first one is physical health. And I think the most obvious is just keeping our student athletes from contracting the virus, right? So we talk about this every day, and we talk about like what we can do to reduce the risk. And I always mention that we can't eliminate the risk of catching this virus, but we can definitely reduce the risk. So we always talk about, how we can wash hands, how we can distance. If we are going to be meeting someone, we can be outside. We talk about the different situations of when we can wear a mask, even if it is uncomfortable, even if other people are not. And we talk about those and we refer to them as like safety logs, right? That we put on a fire. And so everyone on the team, when you make a good decision, you're putting another log on our safety fire, and you're doing that for the team. So it's really cool, just to hear our team. And every now and then after practice, I'm like, what are some logs you put on the fire this past weekend? And some girls will raise their hand, and I decided to go for a walk outside, rather than go to the mall. Just little things like that, and they all add up. And so our team has been really responsible. But I continue to emphasize that because I think it's really important, that we do the little things to help reduce the risk. Now, we could face, and I let everyone know, we could face some time where we do have some positive tests, or we do have, those things can happen, and that's okay. But as long as we're doing everything we possibly can to reduce the risk, I think that's really important. In terms of health, I think physical preparation for a full season is really important. I spoke with a coach on the West Coast who coaches this really prominent program, and in the first week, he had 4 injuries, serious injuries, to his team. And I asked him, I said, well, what did you guys do? And he's like, oh man, we hopped right into it. We started playing 6-on-6. We went right after it. We were having 4-hour practices. We were doing this and that. And I kind of like thought to myself, I was just like, man, like, we just had 7 weeks off. Our kids are stressed in a lot of different ways. They're not physically prepared for this season. If their physical preparation during the fall was like ours, is very inconsistent. There were times when we had to shut down training for a week. There are times when we couldn't train as much as we want to in the weight room. So I think our physical preparation for a full season is really important. So the way we're kind of combating that is that I'm putting weight training sessions above practices. So if it's, the choice between us having a volleyball practice or being in the weight room and building up that strength base, we're going to be in the weight room. And so a lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people say, you gotta, do volleyball. And I just think, once our kids step out to compete, their brains are going to take over, and they're going to try to do everything to the full extent. And if they're not physically prepared for that, that's going to mean a lot of injuries. And so what that could mean is, that you could really be hurting your chances of putting out your best lineup. So I really emphasize the physical preparation piece of it. And we did that. We also emphasized that over our 7-week break. And I think our team just did a fantastic job of being committed. And a lot of people did what they could do with whatever situation they were in, right? So we had people who could just go down the street into a gym and wear a mask and work out. We had some people where all the gyms were closed in their city. So we had a lot of different people in a lot of different places in terms of the physical preparation. So I want to make sure, at least over the course of this season that we are always going to be lifting. We're always going to be preparing our bodies, because when it gets to the end of the season, I think whoever is in the best physical shape is going to be, or have a better chance of being successful. Yeah, so physical health is really important. Just kind of the virus, but also just having our bodies in tip-top shape. And then a very close number two, and this you could argue that it should be number one, is mental health. So I think this is something that is just, I think it's actually overlooked when you're talking about college kids. I don't think people are realizing how much this situation has weighed on their minds, but in different ways, right? A lot of it's not, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about getting this virus. No, it's in different ways, and I think the biggest way that this has affected our student athletes' mental health is just the uncertainty, right? So it's will we have a season? Will we be able to train? What are other teams doing right now? Will we have to wear masks? What's the testing policy? We just figured out the mask and testing policy for our conference like a week ago, or a week and a half ago. But this was weighing on their minds. The stress, the mental health stress of, I don't want to catch COVID and give it to my teammates, or I don't want to catch COVID and give it to my parents. I don't want to be the person that shuts down our training for a week or two because I contact the virus. So if you can think about it, there's so many different mental health factors, and it may not be the same as me or their grandparents, kind of like that kind of mental health stress, but they have so much. And these kids are really 18, 19, 20, they're not that old, so they don't have that much experience. So I just think, the mental health that they're dealing with and the stress of that is just really important for us to acknowledge. And then I think what we're doing is we're checking in with everyone every single week. So I have 4 staff members, and we have 16 players on the team. So each of us have 4 players that we check in with every single week. And we rotate those people within our groups. And we just ask them, our first question is, how are you doing? And then our second question is, what do you need help with? How can we help? And I think it's really important. And then on top of that, I said to my staff this year more than ever, I want us to have a really, fun, lively atmosphere at practice. I want them to look forward to coming practice. And I think they already do, because they really like to play. They really like to be at practice. But, we have music playing. We're joking around. Even though you can't see people smile, you can tell people are smiling. They want to create an environment where they can escape, the Zoom life of classes, where they can escape the pressures that they feel, where they can escape that uncertainty that's bubbling around their head. So we try to create a really good environment, so they can get there and they could be like, okay, I feel comfortable in this environment. I'm happy. It's really cool. And so I think we're doing a good job with that. But it's sometimes we kind of, in those conversations with them, we kind of have to pry a little bit. We need to kind of get through that little thick skin that they have, or the shield they're putting up, and say like, okay, tell me what's really going on, or tell me, what's making, what fears do you have? What's making you nervous? What's making you scared? And a lot of times they open up after that. But man, the mental health factor that these kids are feeling, I hear some coaches that are going on with volleyball as normal, and I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good. So it's something that we're definitely emphasizing. And then on top of that, I've already let the team know, we're not going to go for our practices every single day. I just don't think that's smart. I think the mental health stresses that we're all feeling turn into physical stresses, right? And so from that, you could get injuries, you could get burnout. And so we want to be fresh throughout the season. So I'm going to be giving them more days off. I'm encouraging them on the days off, like, get out of our environment, go on a hike. We got these beautiful mountains here, to our west. Why don't you just go on a little trail and, clear your mind? And so they love it. They shoot me pictures all the time of like the hikes they're going on or whatever. And it's really cool. But we'll be taking probably more days off during our season than most programs. And I think that then the last kind of health aspect that we're emphasizing is emotional health. I think being a competitive collegiate athlete, I think it's already stressful enough. You know, when you think about, you know, preparing for your next competition, when you're thinking of how can I impact the lineup or how can I help my team? You know, I think there's just a lot of emotional stresses that come with that as well. And during this fall, you know, I had a rule that, you know, because, you know, our department had a rule, you can't contact or have unnecessary contact. So we had a policy, no high fives, right? And you think that wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the number one thing the players asked me is like, can we start to give each other high fives again, you know, heading into this winter? And so I'm like, if that's priority number one for our emotional health, we need to give each other high fives again. You know, we can't see each other smile because of the mask, but we need, you know, to have those high fives and that kind of emotional connection with each other. And then just the other part of emotional health that we do, we emphasize how lucky we are to be on a team with 20 other people that are here for us, right? So we could be facing our situation alone, but we're extremely lucky to have 20 people that have our back, who, you know, people that accept us for who we are, even if we are a little goofy. And it's just, it's a really special thing to have that kind of support system. So we emphasize that support system, and we, you know, once a week, I'll even say, if you need help, ask for help. So I think flexibility, that idea is maybe the most difficult challenge that I'm facing, because I love to have everything set and ready to go and planned out. But this year, man, we're just taking it 1 week at a time, and we're planning for 1 week at a time, and then we're just focusing on the day in front of us. Why? Because there's so many moving pieces and changes that occur every single day. I mean, if I could walk you through the changes that we just had this past week, it would blow your mind. It was almost like I was messaging the team every single day saying, oh, practice has moved from this to this. Or okay, well, we had to move our testing, our COVID testing from this time to this time because of this, you know, and okay, now we have to do video, you know, at this time instead of this time. And so I just, you know, I kind of front loaded that. I told our team, hey, we got to be flexible. And I told them, I'm like, I'm going to need your help with that, because I might freak out. Like, I'm so rigid and OCD that I need things that I was just like, I need your help. I need you just to pat me on the shoulder and say it's going to be all right, when like our entire game plan like blows up, you know, of what the week's going to be. But if you can imagine the flexibility that we have to have, you know, it's because all these sports are packed into one season essentially, right? So all the fall sports are moved, you know, into the winter. And so our entire athletic department is, first of all, shorthanded. Second of all, you know, we're having to host all of these events, all these practices. We're trying to fit teams in with different kinds of protocol where there's maybe limitations that we haven't had in the past. So there's just a ton of changes that have to happen every single day, every single week. So a couple of the changes, so training time changes, I already mentioned that. If we have competition cancellations or rescheduling, we'll have to figure that out. Travel limitations. So we had no preseason matches, and that's just the way it worked out. We couldn't find any teams in our local area that were allowed to play or that would play us. So we just couldn't have them. You know, we have travel limitations. I mean, if I could share with you our travel protocol, it would just blow your mind, from how we enter into the bus at DU, to how we have to, you know, act at the airport, you know, to how we have to handle the luggage when it comes off the luggage rack, to how we have to behave at the hotel that we go to. I mean, it's amazing, right? So we have to have a little bit of flexibility in that. You know, we have roster limitations. You know, if we do have positive cases, if there is contact tracing, you know, I might have to ask a libero to swing middle. You know, we could show up with no setters, you know, to a location, and we're just gonna have to figure it out. And so I think, you know, we're gonna have to be flexible, and we can't sit there and pout. We can't get upset. We just have to look at the situation and problem solve and say, okay, what can we do to give us our best chance of winning? And then just kind of dial into the process there. On top of that is building limitations, being able to practice on the road, being able to practice at home. We've never had a situation where us basketball and gymnastics are all trying to share the same facility. So we've had to move our practices into gates. Before basketball kind of got shut down, we were, going to be practicing in a different location for the 2 days leading up to our first home match. But I told the team, hey, that's this year, and this is going to be great. We're going to make the best of the situation, and we got to be flexible. And so I haven't heard one complaint, from any of the student athletes, from any of the staff members, because it's one of our emphasis, right? We're saying we have to be flexible because we do not need stress. We do not need anything extra to impact our mental state, right? We don't want it to impact us in a negative way. So when these things happen, when these changes do happen, it's really good. We look at it as a challenge. We look at it, how can we overcome this challenge? It's like, oh, great. Okay, let's figure this out. So we anticipate there being change, but I also think the fact that we just look at the week in front of us, because if we were to look at the full 10-week season, and we would see all these changes occurring at the future weeks, I think it would just really stress us out. So we just focus on the week in front of us. There's enough changes that occur within that. and then we have the day in front of us. So it's really kind of helped us out, and I'm getting better at it. I'm definitely getting more flexible at times. I've had, Tim, our strength and conditioning coach, come up, put his hand on my shoulder, and it's like, it's going to be okay, Tom. I was like, that's all I need. Or, Batty tells me to breathe a lot. So, but I'm getting better at the skill of being flexible, even though I am a very, very serious planner. So I think that's really good. And then I think the third thing is positivity. I think that's really important. What I tell our team, and this is something that I actually emphasize every single day, but we need to recognize how lucky we are with the situation that we're in. We get tested every single week. We get tested sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. There are places where testing is really limited, but here we are as student athletes, and we get tested very often, and I think we're really fortunate to have that. We get to train in the sport that we love, where a lot of people are just kind of locked up in their homes. We get to come into a gym every single day, and we get to compete against each other. We get to try to get better at skills. We get to interact with each other, and there's so many people in the situation that we're in that have no interaction. You have grandparents that are locked in nursing homes. You have people that can't leave their houses. And so I say, like, we're so lucky. And then the other factor that I talked about before is that it's so cool that to be a part of a team. So we get to face this together. We're not alone. We get to face this pretty tragic situation together. And then I think one thing that was looming over our heads was, our season is not canceled. And I know it's during a different time, but, we have the ability to compete for a chance in something very historic. So for those of you that don't know, the NCAA tournament got reduced in terms of the size to 48 teams. So I think there's going to be 30 automatic qualifiers, meaning if you win your conference or you win your conference tournament, you automatically qualify for that. And there's going to be, I think, 18 now at-large bids, right? But they're going to probably hold it in one location. So I think it's going to be in Omaha. And I just thought I said to our team, we get the opportunity to compete to be one of those 48 teams. I said, how cool is that? I said, this is never going to happen ever again in the history of our sport, right? Hopefully, knock on wood, right? This is never going to ever happen again. This has never happened before. And this will be the only time that they're going to have 48 teams in one location, and they're going to create a bubble. They're going to do all this stuff, and all the eyes of the volleyball nation are going to be on this one location. And I said, how cool would that be for us to be there in Omaha with 47 other teams, that everyone is, wishing they could have been there, right? So, it's like dangling that carrot at the end of the stick, just saying like, hey, this is what we're working for. The opportunity to be part of something very historic. Um, and so I think our team definitely looks at that as like a really positive opportunity, right? We're doing this for a reason. We're doing this because we want to, have a chance to be part of that. Um, so those are kind of my three things. It's our health, our flexibility, and just staying positive. And a lot of our coaches are kind of ignoring the fact of the situation we're in. A lot of coaches are pushing their team more than they ever did because they're stressing out, right? They have coach brain, and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, we need to get better. Oh, we haven't trained consistently. Oh, our offense needs to do this and that." And I'm thinking to myself, like, realistically, for us, we have to be the best team we could possibly be at the end of the season. And it's, how can we put ourselves in that position, right? We have to be top 4 in our conference in order to qualify for that tournament. We have to play at least 10 matches in order to qualify for that. But I thought to myself, like, what's most important? And it's just, I think these three things just trump everything else. It's not as, these are more important than our offense system. These are more important, than us serving our opponent. These things are more important. And I've just heard these horror stories or how, other programs are just ignoring this or ignoring the situation that their student athletes are in. And I think, at first it may work out, but I think over the course of the season, their teams are going to burn out. They're going to face injuries. I just don't think it's a healthy way to approach it. So, I'm taking a risk, but I think those three things are really important. So those are kind of my emphasis. And then I wanted to kind of get into a look ahead to our season because that's kind of the main point of this call, and I bet a lot of people are kind of dying to hear about it. I think that the main thing for us is that over the last 4 weeks is that we weren't able to schedule an official competition, right? So a lot of people within our conference have already played 2, 3, some 4 matches. So they've had that experience. We have not. So I kind of look at it as positive and negative, right? So we haven't had a chance to get all those jitters out in an official match setting. But the positive aspect of that is we've had the past 4 weeks to really work on ourselves. So we haven't had to focus on anyone else but ourselves. And I think that's really helped us a lot. We've just focused on, getting our physical strength back. We focused on our systems. We focused on how we're going to confront adversity and all that stuff. But I do think I'm guessing everyone on this call is going to be on Pioneer Vision this Sunday. I do think if you watch our first match against Omaha, you're going to see a lot of jitters. You're going to see a little bit of competition rust. But I think over the long haul, we're actually going to be pretty thankful that we kind of went hard over these last 4 weeks, because I think we'll be better prepared as the season progresses. And kind of speaking of our season, I think we have 2 strengths that I think that we have those over most of our competition. And our 2 strengths, one is our depth. And I told our team this on the very first day of training this winter, and actually at the very first day of our fall training as well. We have never been this deep as a team at every single position. We have so much talent in our gym at every single position. Now, we've had talented players a part of our program, no doubt. We've never had this much talent and this much depth. So I think that's good in a lot of different reasons, right? So one is that, just like today's practice, the sides we're going so hard competing against each other that we were making ourselves better. So it's not like we have this, glamorous A side and then we have this B side that gets beat up by the A side. No, we have 2 sides that are competing at the same level and really pushing each other. And then, given the situation that we're in, we could have positive tests and we could have contact tracing. And so we may need some people to step up. where other teams maybe only have 4 or 5 good players. And if those 4 or 5 are knocked out for a competition, I think they're going to be in some serious trouble, where I don't think we're going to have that issue. You know, if we do need someone else to step up and play, I think that we have the depth to do that and to still be competitive. So I think our depth helps us get better every day. And I think it'll help us if we're in a challenging situation where some people may not be able to play for us. I think experience is our other strength. We have 5 seniors who are all amazing. We have Kaya, who's in her 5th year. We have Erica, who's a grad transfer with international experience. We just have a ton of experience. We do. Now, and I'll get into this in a second, our biggest competition, and a couple of the other teams have a lot of experience too. But I haven't coached a DU team that has this much experience. So I think our experience is going to help us when it's 24-24. In the 5th set, when they go out there and the ref blows the whistle, for the beginning of the 5th set, I think our experience is going to show through. Even if we're down 15-20 in a set, I think we'll be calm. And a lot of that is because of our experience. And we have players on our team that have been part of 3 championship seasons, that have been to 3 NCAA matches, who are seeking their 4th. So I do think the experience that we have will definitely be something that's going to be a huge strength for us. I guess that's the next question. I'm assuming, I guess, players to watch. I really think, and I know this sounds kind of cliche, or it sounds like I'm trying to duck it, but everyone on our team is someone to watch on our team. I mean, we have a loaded roster, and I've been really impressed with everyone in our gym, and some more at different times. But I think some players to watch, maybe that you haven't seen before, or some people that have made some huge strides. I think Erica Andrich, again from Italy, she is just fantastic. She's learning our systems, so a little inconsistent, but she's getting better every day, and she's just an unbelievable person with such a great mindset. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you recruit international players, especially during the COVID time, or during times when you don't have the ability to actually meet them in person, you're taking a little bit of a risk. And so I kind of knew that going in, but I studied a lot of her film, and we FaceTimed a lot. And she is a truly wonderful person. So I think, as you watch matches, you'll get to know her a little bit better. But just know that, when you see her being a great teammate, when you see her smiling, that's really who she is. And I think kind of an anchor on our team is Lydia Bartolo. She's our returning All-American, probably the best all-around player in the Summit League. But she's even become more consistent with her play and her understanding of efficiencies. But she's going to be, someone that we lean on a lot. Tina Bowe is a major leader on our team. What people don't recognize is we changed our offense system in terms of our middles last year. So last time we played, which is like 420 some days ago. So anyways, our season, not this past fall, but the previous fall, we changed our offense system for the middles, and we made it what's called 0 tempo. So what that essentially means is when our setter is touching the ball, our middles are up ready to attack. So it happens really fast, right? So we went a lot faster in our middle. And so Tina took about half of our previous fall season to get used to that. And then her second half of the season, she was putting up All-American numbers. So she's going into this season with that learning curve and ready to, attack at that 0 tempo. And now she's more consistent at it. So I'm kind of expecting a big season from her as well. Brie Green, even though she missed kind of her freshman spring quarter of development, which is normally where players take kind of a huge jump there, Brie is really on the cusp of being a very, very dominant player. So when she goes off, I don't think there's anyone in the conference that can stop her. She's definitely impressive, but she's just made huge strides, even in the limited training that we had this past fall. but she's been doing fantastic. And again, I could sit here and just go through our entire roster, but it's been really impressive to watch the senior class and their leadership, to watch, you know, some of the kids the new kids we had, our freshmen of last year, you know, who are now sophomores. Even though they missed kind of that development year during the winter and spring, they're still doing great in our gym today. Our 3 freshmen that we've had join us during this weird COVID year. I mean, can you imagine that, being a freshman and moving into freshman dorms and, you know, just dealing with all this stuff? But they have like the best spirit ever. I just love it. You know, nothing fazed. Like I ask them, is everything okay? They're like, oh, it's great. I love it. This is fantastic. I always tell them, like,
so, and not to interrupt, Coach, but just so
yeah.
you guys have an idea of what life is like in a dorm right now, your cohort is your roommate, essentially. So you don't have to wear a mask when you're in your room with your roommate, but you're not allowed to go into any other common areas or any other rooms, period. And walking along the hall, going to the restroom, those sorts of things, you have to wear a mask. So think back to when you were in college and what that looks like for, you know, for our kids today. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of give everybody an idea of what that looked like.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, just imagine they're trying, you know, the expectation level that they're in, because they're on a team that wants to compete, that wants to continue training, that tests 3 times a week. Because they're in that situation, you know, they kind of hold themselves to even a higher standard than maybe some of the normal students that are in that same dorm. But man, I just love it. Every single time I talk to them, they're like, oh, the new student commons is awesome. Oh man, they have such great food there. I'm so excited. You know, it's like nothing phases these kids, man. And I was more worried about these freshmen than anyone else, because I was like, you know, you move away from home, you know, you don't have mom waking you up, cooking you meals. Like, how are you going to do? But they've tackled this situation really well. And kind of speaking of that, I think the 2 people that I want to mention and make sure that I mention every single time I speak, Crystal and Tim. So Crystal is our athletic trainer, and Tim is our strength and conditioning coach. And Crystal has had to deal with so much. It's just amazing. Not just with scheduling our testing. She's actually doing the testing. I had Crystal stick a swab up my nose at the testing pod. I mean, you know, our athletic department is really strapped right now. And so they're asking our support staff to do more. And Crystal, you know, is fantastic. You know, she's such a hard worker. She's like also our team's like part-time psychiatrist. The girls love to talk to her and, you know, vent, clear their mind. But she's just doing a fantastic job getting through this time and helping us all through this time. And, you know, whenever I need her to like keep me in check, you know, Crystal's the one that keeps me in check. She'll normally crack a joke at me, and, you know, but she's the only one on the team and staff that can do that. And, you know, she's been doing a lot for our team. And then Tim, you know, a lot of you know, I've experienced working the Olympic movement. And so I've worked with a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, and Tim by far is the best I've worked with. And I've lived at the Olympic Training Center. I've worked with dozens of coaches there. You know, and it's not only because Tim really knows his stuff, but it's because he's so passionate about what he does. And so in the Olympic movement, that's what I realized. Everyone's good, right? Everyone's good when you get to that level. But the people that have passion for what they do are just a little bit better than everyone else. And I think that's what makes Tim really special. He just has such a passion for our team. He just loves the game of volleyball, but he just pours his soul into our team and helps them be as good as they possibly can be. So I just wanted to quickly mention them. So when all this stuff blows over and we get to have fans back in the stands, or, you know, we get to have normal interactions, you got to make sure you go up to Tim and Crystal and say thank you to them. You know, because they have really busted their butts during this time. And I think, yeah, just looking ahead to our conference season, some teams to watch for. I think this year, the Summit League is going to be probably more difficult than any other year. So more competitive. And we are having our matches for the first half of the season on Sunday, Monday. And I know that was a question in the chat because basketball is Friday, Saturday. So when basketball is playing, both teams are playing at the same location. So men and women are kind of doing double headers at the same location on Friday, Saturday. So there's just really no gym availability. Like we can't even practice in our own gym when basketball is at home because 4 teams have to do their shoot arounds in the morning. And then, you know, the 2 games need to take place in the afternoon. And there's so much sanitizing protocol and just like locking down the arena protocol like hours before the game. So for the first half, we're Sunday, Monday. And then once basketball season is over, we switch back to Friday, Saturday for our matches. But getting back to it, I think South Dakota, they were voted as preseason #1. They return everyone from an undefeated season. And so they're really hungry for that conference tournament championship. So if anyone knows what happened the last time we had a fall season, they got upset by Omaha in the semifinals. And they got denied an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament. So they're pretty fired up about it. But I think they're easily a top 25 team. They're really, really competitive and they're really well coached and prepared. So South Dakota is a team, you know, that we're definitely, that's on our radar. Omaha, who we're playing this weekend, they're always in the mix for a championship. And again, they upset South Dakota in our last one. They're bringing back all their impact players. And they're well coached and well prepared. So again, Omaha, South Dakota, I would say those are all kind of in the mix. And then Kansas City, you know, they're new to our conference, so we really don't know much about them. We don't know their style of play, but they have historically been a great team, and they're really well coached, you know. And so I think, you know, you have to get used to a team style. You have to get used to your team's roster. Like we're more comfortable playing against South Dakota than we are probably Kansas City because we know them. We know their tendencies, we know their players. So I'd say those 3 teams are really teams. You know, all the teams in our conference can beat everyone in any given day. But I would say those are the 3 teams to definitely keep on your radar and watch for.